Welcome to Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Eloy Oakley, President Chancellor of Long Beach City College. And sir, congratulations is in order. You fought the fight and it was valiant and you won. You vanquished your opponents. And I must say that when the governor signs a letter after he signs a bill, that says a lot. And so let's talk about what I'm talking about. Why did the governor actually issue a statement in support of his signature of AB 955?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Please.
And certainly appreciate the governor having faith in Long Beach City College and the 5 other community colleges that have this opportunity to offer extension courses.
And let's talk very specifically about what we're discussing. And that is the issue of whether community colleges should be permitted to offer classes intersession, winter, summer as well?
Yes.
At rates in which non-residents would normally be charged.
Right. So, I mean, part of the issue has been over the last 4 or 5 years, our community colleges have significantly decreased capacity.
That's an understatement.
We have lost probably 500,000 students, turned them away, and this has had a real impact on students trying to finish their degree, trying to get a certificate, get back into the workforce.
And let's be very specific about this, because although we have seen the worst and it's in the rearview mirror as it relates to budget cuts with community colleges, there are so many stories, and they're not anecdotal, of students that are just not able to matriculate to that 4-year institution because they cannot get the class that they need to graduate. It's just impacted, and they can't go next door because it's impacted there. And so it becomes virtually impossible to graduate in 2, let alone 3 years.
It has been very difficult on our students. I mean, they can come to community college, but they can't get the classes they need at the time they need in order to be able to graduate. So this program allows us to offer those high impact classes during winter intersessions, and we can charge up to the cost of education, but
is that the non-resident rate? Is that essentially what it is?
That's essentially what it is, but first of all, the legislation requires us to discount the rate to Board of Governor fee waiver eligible students, so our low-income students. So we discount that fee there. And
for a certain class of students.
For a certain class of students. But beyond that, the bill requires the college to seek additional funding. So our college, at Long Beach City College, we've found additional funding through our foundation. So we've been able to lower the cost even more. So for example, our low-income students are only paying $90 a unit as opposed to the $225 a unit, which the course would cost them otherwise.
And the standard per unit rate is $46 a unit.
The standard state-funded per unit rate is $46 per unit.
Now, one could argue, let's say you're taking a 3-unit class, so instead of it costing about $150, it'll be $300.
Right.
Well, if you took that class at a CSU or UC, how much would it cost there?
Well, it would cost more than that.
Yeah, a lot more than that.
That's for certain. And, you know, first of all, you'd have to get into the CSU and UC. And the courses that we're talking about are those courses that allow our students to transfer to the CSU and UC.
And so Long Beach has taken the bull by the horns, and you have launched your first winter intersession pursuant to AB 955. I believe you're offering 6 classes? Is that right? Because of the short timeline and the short winter intersession, we decided to offer 6 courses. These courses that are high impact, that particularly our veterans need in order to finish their certificates, degrees, or to transfer. And so it's phlebotomy, general business, health ed, philosophy, environmental science, and geography.
Exactly.
I must ask, do we know yet how registration is? I mean, do we know if the demand is there?
Well, registration for the extension courses begins in about a week.
Wait, okay, so as we speak today, we don't know.
We don't know. What we do know as of now, the courses that are state funded, because we're also offering state funded courses, we've already opened up registration for those, yes, and those are already almost completely filled.
So why are some classes being offered intersession under AB 955 and others in the standard formula?
So AB 955 allows us to offer courses in addition to those that were funded to offer by the state. So we've maxed out our funding from the state.
I understand.
And we put on as many courses as we could. those are nearly filled. So AB 955 allows us to continue to add courses in those high demand
and so
areas.
I presume that these 6 classes are not being offered in the regular course during winter session.
That's correct. We could not offer
Right.
any more courses, and these courses were those that were most needed by our veterans and students trying to finish.
So you picked them, as you said, looking at veterans' needs, looking at graduation needs. Is that really how what it came down to?
Yes, that's the criteria we used. We wanted to have as great an impact as possible on that group of students.
I want to ask you about the politics, the optics of this, because it was fairly interesting that the sponsor of this bill was not someone who represents Long Beach. It's someone who represents Santa Barbara. His name is Dos Williams. I know that his particular community college, in which he attended, I believe, Santa Barbara City, not part of the plan, in fact, opposed the plan. There are 6 colleges that are permitted to participate in the program. I don't know that any of them have agreed to participate. Am I right?
Well, 3 have said that they are going to participate. Long Beach City College, College of the Canyons, and Solano College have already said that they are going to participate. We are the only ones participating this winter intersession.
And Pasadena, for example, I guess they've said they're not going to participate.
Pasadena says that they are not. They are changing their academic calendar. They're eliminating intersession, so it doesn't work for them. And Oxnard College has said that they're not going to participate at this time.
And so Crafton Hills and Yucaipa, we don't know yet.
I'm not aware that they've made a decision yet, but I mean, we're very grateful to Dos Williams. He was a very courageous legislator this year. The reason he chose to take this on, and I don't want to speak for him, but I certainly had my experience this year, is he saw this as an issue that was impacting California. And as the chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, he felt that it was something he needed to take on, and he really wanted to open up more access at a time when students were being squeezed out of our classes.
Why was this fight so fierce? It really surprised me a bit. I guess, and I'm not really taking a position, but it's interesting what Governor Brown said in his signing statement. Why deny these campuses the opportunity to offer student access and financial assistance to courses not otherwise available? I mean, you read between the lines of the short signing statement. He said, why not try it? So why, if it's just a pilot program, it's sunsets in 2018. What happened here?
Well, I mean, I understand my colleagues on the other side of this issue. They have a concern that that this is going to lead to undermining funding for our community colleges, that the legislature is going to abandon their commitment to funding community colleges. And I've heard those arguments. I just don't feel the same way. I think the legislature has given us an opportunity, but is not saying that they are going to pull the plug on funding in the future.
And the irony is that when you look at tuition at California's community colleges per unit, despite the dramatic spikes over the last few years, we're still 50th out of 50 in a good way. We still are the cheapest out of the 50 states. Now, I don't know if that $90 per unit for intersession, where that takes us, but
we are still well below the median across the country. And so we continue to be the most affordable public education system in the world. And I don't believe that this is going to undermine that. I believe that this is just going to give one more opportunity for students.
Are you marketing the plan?
Well, certainly
to LBCC students?
Our first priority is to our existing students and ensuring that those individuals who need these classes understand that there's an opportunity.
So how are you getting the word out? I mean, are you analyzing transcripts and saying, oh, someone needs phlebotomy, or are you just kind of putting up posters?
We're doing a little bit of everything. We're looking at transcripts, we're looking at who needs these courses, making sure that they understand that they're there. We're using social media, we're using a newspaper.
His name is Eloy Oakley. He is the President Chancellor of Long Beach City College. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.
What percentage of California community college students is able to utilize California's fee waiver program to reduce their tuition? 20, 30, 40, or 50%? At least 40% of the 2.4 million community college students are able to access California's fee waivers.
Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Jeff Kellogg. He is the president of the Long Beach Community College District. We just spoke with your superintendent, Eloy Oakley. And as I did with Mr. Oakley, I congratulate you on the passage of AB 955, which is the bill that allows a small group of community colleges, if they so choose, to offer intersession classes at non-resident rates. Right. I asked Mr. Oakley, I want to ask you, this was quite a climb. How were you able to convince the legislature and the governor to push this forward in the wake of tremendous opposition?
Well, it was a political process. So unlike where Santa Monica City College tried something similar, but it was internally with Santa Monica City College, this was a political process in Sacramento. And a lot of hard work over a period of time, starting with the assembly member from Santa Barbara, of all places,
Mr. Williams,
who was the author of this. And the governor, when he not only signed it, he made a comment about it as well.
Right. We mentioned that with Mr. Oakley. He had a signing statement.
Yeah, and that's just as basically putting essentially a stamp of approval.
Right.
And his point was, it seems like a reasonable request.
Right.
Now, it very politically a challenging issue, not only for the state legislature, but for the Board of Trustees of Long Beach City College, because we had no real actions until it was passed, and then the college board had to take some steps to start to implement that for this winter's
And I think about the new chancellor of the entire system, Bryce Harris. He called it a horrible idea. Yeah, I mean, to have the chancellor of all 112 colleges call it a horrible idea, and yet you're still able to push it through the system, get the governor to sign it with a signing statement. Why is there such vehement opposition to this pilot program in your mind?
It was because it's different. It's a change. And I was actually surprised that Chancellor Harris did come out that strongly, because I actually know him quite well.
Oh, yes.
But he and others came out against it. And it really comes down to, and you're hearing even now, as the political season ramps up in the city of Long Beach, including the Community College Board, you start to hear people talk about a two-tier system.
Right. That's what we've heard.
The fact is, the system for community colleges in California is 112 colleges. The rate is $46 a unit. This is a pilot program that of the 6 colleges, really Long Beach is the one that's moving forward to implement this.
Which is so interesting. I mentioned this with Superintendent Oakley. We already know 2 colleges of the 6 have declined to participate, specifically declined.
Some of them, though, for example, Pasadena are going through a change in their structure. They couldn't do it. College of the Canyons.
They're waiting, I think.
They couldn't qualify, but they have to wait.
Right.
So really it came down to Long Beach, and we truly are the test product on this one. But as I've told people, I think it's going to be a success, and the biggest reason for that is give students an option to possibly take a course they couldn't get traditionally. Right. And those courses are the ones we have long wait lists for.
Right. So, I know there are 6 being offered for winter 2014. I also understand that the student government organizations were literally, they were protesting.
They came down, and some, but I found a lot didn't really understand what was taking place. But we also had students, and at meetings such as ours, and I was actually, that was one of the first meetings I was chairing, and I was thinking, okay, is this going to go bad like the Santa Monica meeting where students were pepper sprayed?
Literally.
It actually went quite well. And we had 1 or 2 students that stood up and said, this gives me an opportunity to finish my degree, and I can move on with my academic.
One could argue that there would be a financial savings, because even though the per unit rate, I guess it's going to be about double at this stage. It could have been quadruple, but for the Long Beach City system in winter 2014, it'll be about double. If you had to wait another year to get that class, wouldn't it be better to spend a couple $100s now?
And there's no guarantee you would get that class as well. So I think a lot of the students' opposition, they were organized in certain ways, but I don't think they truly understood what we were trying to accomplish, and that is to give people an option. If they don't want to do it, don't do it.
I want to ask you about another potentially innovative plan.
Also known as controversial.
Controversial, that's a good way to say it. And it deals with what types of degrees community colleges are permitted to offer. At this stage, the general degree you receive is an associate's.
Right.
But there is now a plan that's being evaluated by actually Bryce Harris, I believe, or at least the California Community College system, which would allow community colleges in California at some level to offer 4-year degrees. baccalaureates.
And again, it comes down to, for example, Long Beach City College has a tremendous nursing program. We'll just focus on those. And I really believe that's what you're going to see. There's some colleges that are located in faraway places. We mentioned some place like Shasta College up on the border. And so it, I think, has some real merit, but it's going to be flushed out. The Chancellor, Harris, is looking at it. He's got with his Board of Governors, they're looking at it, how we can address it.
Let's delve into it, because I'll be honest with you, until I read an article about it, I didn't even know it was something that was ever considered, yet I learned that 21 states currently allow some form of baccalaureates at community colleges. And so clearly there is some movement on this front. You mentioned nursing. We know that there's a dearth of nurses in California. We know with the Affordable Care Act, we will need more primary care professionals such as nurses. So one could argue the timing is right for this. But how far do we go? Do we allow it for all degrees? Do we focus on nursing, automotive? Do we look at rural versus urban? Where do we take this?
Well, those are good questions. I mean, I would start with, though, that what programs, and you mentioned the nursing, because nurse practitioners in the future with the Obamacare, or whatever you want to term this, are going to have much more responsibility. As you know, my daughter actually left the state of California. Is that, no, don't say she's write letters, but it's TCU.
TCU, forgive me. I knew it was
SMU
Texas.
doesn't have nursing. That would have been
TCU, forgive me.
But
the frog?
Go horned frogs.
Horned frogs, okay, so I knew that.
But she's in nursing, nurse practitioners, and there's tremendous demand for it. So I think what's going to work through is programs like that are going to be at the forefront. Because those are the ones that have the most legitimate needs that I think you're going to look at.
What about in Shasta? What about in College of the Redwoods, I think it's called? I mean, you know these.
Yes.
I mean, there are no four-year universities nearby.
No.
And so, you know, if you limit it to nursing, okay, that's fine, but it seems like it gives opportunities to folks that can't move to get that BA or BS.
Well, the one thing, though, that we're talking from a very logical standpoint, but the one thing about higher education in California, as proven with our intersession, that everything is a process. It takes time. A lot of special interests are involved in this. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to do what's best for students to help our state, our society become better educated to serve the needs of people, then these things should happen. It'll just take time and a lot of patience by a lot of people. But I feel strongly, because Long Beach City College has been very, not controversial, but very innovative in many things we've done with College Promise, College Pathways, the way we test students now and place students. These are the type of things that really do address how Long Beach has been.
One area that is a source of contention on this question is who would be educating these future BA and BS students. As we know, at universities where four-year degrees are offered, I think you must be a PhD.
I don't know on that level, but
I know at community colleges many are not PhDs. And so that begs the question.
Because there you have, in a community college, our community colleges are dependent upon what we refer to as adjunct faculty members. They are part-time faculty members, are also referred to as freeway flyers. They're working at multiple community colleges. They're the backbone in many ways of community colleges. Now, full-time faculty members have more responsibilities, but they're more expensive. So, but that is a question. Those are the devils in the details, so to speak, that's going to have to be looked at. But as far as with faculty members at the community college, we have tremendous faculty. Whether it be adjunct or full-time.
But that's Long Beach. You're in an urban center. What happens?
And that takes it to the higher level, and that's when you suddenly get all the other entities involved on protecting the quality of education. But I would match whether it be my adjunct or my full-time faculty members with anybody.
His name is Jeff Kellogg. He is the president of the Long Beach Community College District. When we come back, we're going to be speaking with Caryn Antonini. She is the president and founder of Early Lingo. She focuses on bilingualism. Should we pay more attention to creating bilingual students? We'll talk about that when we come back. I'm Brad Pomerance. It's Charter California Edition.
What is the oldest existing community college in the state of California? Bakersfield College, Fresno City College, San Francisco City College, or Santa Barbara City College? The oldest existing community college in California is Fresno City College, operational since 1910.
Welcome back. It's Charter California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Our guest, Caryn Antonini, she is the founder and CEO of Early Lingo, which is a program that helps infants and toddlers acquire a second language. And the reason I brought you back on the program is because I've come to think that when you look at California, there's a real schizophrenia about how parents and educators feel about bilingualism. Mm-hmm. On the one hand, we want our English dominant children to speak second languages, this whole dual immersion program trend. On the other hand, when children are not English dominant, you know, we want to push them to English dominance as fast as we can. And I don't know that we necessarily value their dominant language. Right. Am I off on this?
No.
Is that what you're saying as an expert in bilingualism,
yes.
trilingualism?
We're definitely seeing that. The dual immersion programs they are on the rise, which is fantastic. We started with a couple hundred a few years ago, and now we're up to over 1,000. California, Texas leading the way.
Right.
And then there's the English immersion program, which is what you're referring to, which is what they want to have the children, the non-proficient speakers, go in and be separated into these classes.
Right.
But they're losing their primary language. They're not valuing, as you say, in this case, Spanish. They're not valuing the Spanish.
Why? What's your sense?
And
is it only Spanish? I mean, what about dominant in Asian languages?
Sure, there are other programs as well, but I feel like it's getting all the kids into the mainstream. It's to get them up to the same level as the children, in the mainstream English.
And what's so interesting is my eldest daughter's now 11, but 5, 6, 7 years ago, whenever it was, we were looking toward a dual language immersion program, and she had already had some Spanish proficiency. But yet that wasn't valued because it's just a English dominant kid. We don't care if they already have some proficiency. Sure. And so they're really, I don't know that our society has a handle on this issue of bilingualism. I mean, you think about Europe, and they are so developed on that question.
Yes, there has been a positive shift in that we have seen a rise, but we've only gone from a couple hundred to a couple thousand in the country.
Please give us a sense of the benefits of bilingualism, which we know are huge, but you qualify.
Sure. Well, I believe that it's no longer an option to learn a foreign language. It's a necessity. I mean, in order for our children to compete in the global marketplace, they must become bilingual. It helps them in their jobs in the future. I mean, if you're an employer, would you rather have someone who speaks 2 languages?
Right.
Yes.
No doubt.
They are more adapted to our globalized
world.
What
infuriates me? When I hear parents who may be bilingual themselves think, if we introduce a second language for our 3-year-old, they'll get confused.
No. They
well,
don't.
give us your anecdote. I know it's an anecdote, but this is, there are studies. Yeah.
Right. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 17-month-old, and we're flooding them with Spanish at home and in Italian. And
mind you, Spanish, Italian.
They're very similar.
Similar languages.
Yes.
And how's your 3-year-old doing with his trilingualism?
He's doing very well. Yeah, he'll say to me, if someone asks him how he is in Spanish, sometimes he'll say bene, it's in Italian, but he knows exactly if he's primarily speaking Italian, he knows. So they still mix a little bit, but he knows.
And he's 3.
Exactly, he's 3.
And he knows.
And it does not confuse him. Every child mixes until about the age of around 3, and then they sort everything out. It's just being in context. I mean, sometimes I speak 5 languages, and occasionally I'll think, go into another language. We're human, but
it's so, I work with a variety of people in a variety of areas, and, I have a friend, she speaks English and French and Hebrew and Spanish and Arabic, and flips without even blinking.
Right.
I, for example, spoke French very well for a time, have been learning Spanish. If I start speaking French, my Spanish is just whacked.
Right.
And part of that is because I didn't acquire the languages in my youth.
Right.
I mean, now is the time to acquire.
It is.
As children.
It's such a gift to give your children the language, the gift of language.
It's funny you say that. I'm boasting, I admit it, my friends, but my daughters and I were on a walk maybe 4 years ago, so at the time they were 7 and 5, and we had the Spanish tutor coming to the home, and why do we have to have a Spanish tutor? And I said, this is a gift. When you're 18, you're going to thank me.
Right.
Maybe you told me
Exactly.
that, and that's where I got it. And so tell us more a bit about early lingo as an example.
Well, early lingo was created it's for very young children.
Very young.
Yes,
it
very
says
young.
6 months.
6 months. I mean, you can even use it from birth, just
Right.
having them listen to the sounds. I wouldn't necessarily have them sitting watching the television.
Right.
But listening
So these
to
are
the
DVDs.
sounds. They're DVDs. We actually now have, it's a whole learning program. We have the workbooks and flashcards, which correspond to the DVDs. We just launched in Fiji, and we're looking to do this in the States as well for the educational and retail
What's
market.
interesting about children who are becoming bilingual, and I'll use my daughter just as an example, both my daughters, 11 and 9, is that their sense of grammar is innate, almost as if they're speaking English.
Right.
But when they get into that formalized education, it's tricky.
Right.
Because they don't necessarily know if they're using the imperfect tense or
Sure.
they just say it.
Right.
And so that can present even when we speak English, we don't know if we're speaking subjunctive
Right.
or
We
past
just
perfect
speak.
or whatever it is. And so talk to us, so we have a sense of the English dominant children and how it's becoming, there's a cachet to speak that
Right.
second language.
Of course.
I see, for example, here, you have an English edition.
We do.
American English. So what that
Yes.
tells me is that you are also working with folks that are non-English dominant.
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
We work with the Mayor's Partnership Schools here in Los Angeles.
Oh, wow.
Yes, which is really fascinating because I thought maybe they'd want Spanish, maybe they want another language. They said, no, English. Across the board, they want English because at home they have the parents who they don't always speak English,
Right.
and so they can't help them with their homework. And in school, they're learning English, and they do value their primary language,
Right.
but the instruction is in English. So this really enhances the existing curriculum.
But are you able, or, I'm speaking anecdotally, so I don't know this to be true, but
Right.
are these primary languages still being valued when they're not English?
I think in that case, probably less so.
Really?
In the English, it's something like an English immersion program. The facts stated, it's really to push the child towards
Right.
English, learning English. And because it's not either dual immersion or English in the mainstream with the kids,
Right.
they're pushing that primary language back, where they're not valuing that. They're not placing a value because there's such a quick
So
rush.
what can be done? Because I get it. I mean, look,
Right.
it is important that in California, in America, one speaks English. It's just to
Right.
your disadvantage if you don't.
Of
so
course.
that's critical.
Right.
But how can we get to a place where we're still valuing
Yes.
the bilingualism?
Well, that's when I speak to children in the schools, I meet with the children and the teachers, and I really encourage them. I said, listen, this is your language, your heritage. Do not give that up, because this is what sets you apart right now. A lot of
Right.
kids in this country are not bilingual. You are. So keep both languages up. I think it's just keeping that message going, and in the schools, hopefully, whether we have more dual immersion or just having the children in the mainstream, and they're able to speak the English
what's
language.
so crazy? We talked about this before. There are some schools that make an affirmative decision not to introduce language in elementary school.
Right.
I don't
Right.
understand that. Even if it's exposure.
it's a crime.
Even if it's exposure. My
Right.
daughter's elementary
Yes.
school had Spanish exposure.
Right.
Wasn't quite classes, but
Right.
amen for the exposure.
At least they have
You know,
something,
and so
yes.
now that my daughter's in 6th grade, she has some Spanish proficiency, so she's a little bit advanced. But my point
Right.
is that at least the exposure.
Exposure, yes, because like you were saying, once they get to sit down at grammar,
Right.
at least like our children or my children, they will
Right.
have the foundation, the confidence, and then they won't look at it as a
So
stumbling.
do you think this is a fad, or is America finally getting hip with
I
bilingualism?
feel like the parents really want to give their children an edge. I'm hoping. I do see progress.
So I have to ask you.
Yes.
What are your best sellers? What language? Is it-
Spanish by far.
It is
And
Spanish still.
interestingly,
What's second?
Italian.
Italian?
Italian.
Not
yes.
Chinese or
It's
Japanese?
Not Chinese. No, it's Italian. It's amazing. I mean, I saw the numbers. I kept looking, and
I thought something was wrong.
Yes, I thought it was wrong, but it's not.
And you're an Italian speaker?
Closely, yes, I
Yeah.
am. So I'm very proud
Yeah.
of that. But the Italian government actually pumped a lot of money into getting the AP course back on.
Oh, right.
So,
Okay. Her name
yes.
is Caryn Antonini. She is the president, CEO, founder of Early Lingo. You can learn more about her program at earlylingo.com. I'm Brad Pomerance, Charlotte, California.